Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to Stormgate Central. In this video, I want to show you guys a couple of the builds out of the Frigate playtest that, in my eyes, sort of dominated the meta as the Celestials. These two builds I used a lot, and we're going to be watching these games from my perspective here. You know, I feel like since these Celestials were announced, this is really one of the things we haven't seen too much of. We've seen a lot of casted games, but I don't think I've ever talked about what playing as the Celestials was like from a first-person perspective. So that's what we're going to do in this video. As always, guys, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Stormgate is going to be releasing very soon towards the end of July, and it's going to be free to play, of course, later in August, 2 weeks later, in fact. So keep your eyes peeled here to the channel. There is going to be a lot of content coming up, plenty of build orders. I'm going to continue to cover the news of Stormgate, of course, so if that's something that interests you, then feel free to join us. We'd love to have you, and as always, guys, thank you so much for the support here. So I wanted to showcase two very different games here. I think a lot of people think that the Celestials are basically going to be like the Cannon Rush Protoss, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this game. I'm going to show you the strength of how mobile this faction is, and then in the second game, I'm going to show you how you can play the Celestials in a more, let's say, traditional fashion where you don't build your base all over the map. But in this game, what I'm doing here is I'm floating my arc ship, which is the starting building, and it also acts somewhat of as a unit as well, out across the map towards my opponent. Now, I've taken my first morph core, which is that floating thing that you just saw there for a second, and I have built a collection array just to the left of my main base there up in the top right, so really in the second natural rather. And now I've built a second morph core, and I'm putting it in the middle on Secluded Grove. This is a really great map to do this kind of thing on, because you can hide the collection arrays from mining in the middle of the map, and the enemy is going to be none the wiser. Right here, I've thrown down a power bank to give myself a little bit of power, and then I'm dropping 2 bastions, which is the starting building for the Celestials. Now, you can see my opponent here. He's playing as the Vanguard, and he's doing a great job keeping his scout directly underneath the arc ship so that I can't land. If you allow the Celestial player to land the arc ship, not only does the arc ship have an attack, and it's, you know, one of the most well-armored buildings in the game, but you also have a top bar ability there. The second one from the left that kind of looks like a pair of wings, that is some sort of a defensive ability that you can place on a building. It lasts for a very long time. In fact, I think it lasts probably a little bit longer than it should, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Frostgiant nerf that when early access arrives. But as soon as you can only use it on a building that's on the ground, right? So the only way to take it down is either wait for the timer to run out or kill the building. And all I'm going to do here, now that I've got my 3 bastions up, is I'm going to start pumping out Argents, which are the starting unit. Now, one of the great things about the Celestials is you can designate any one of your buildings as the primary building. So even though I built my 2 bastions at the back there, the furthermost bastion that's right there at the top of the screen has now been designated as the primary one. So any Argents that I build are going to come out of there. I'm going to put a couple of power banks down here, because what those do, not only do they provide you with power for your buildings and for your top bar, but they also they restore power to your units. So the Argents, they consume power when they attack, and my opponent's just done a bit of a blunder there. He's moved his scout out of the way, and that has now allowed me to land my arc ship on the ground, and I'm probably going to go and drop. There it goes. There goes the ability down from the top bar. I think it's called Guardian's Wrath, and you can see it is just absolutely destroying the bobs that are trying to repair this buzzsaw cannon. Now, he does have a pretty nice setup here. He's got a repair turret. I forget the names of the specific turrets for the Vanguard here, but he's got the repair turret going, and it's repairing the buzzsaw cannon along with the bob. So this is going to be really, really hard for me to break here. I'm going to need a number of Argents, and the problem with them is once they've finished their energy, they only attack for half damage. So I have managed to take down the buzzsaw cannon there. He probably needed like a few more turrets just to defend with, because that really is the problem with this build. Once the Celestial player gets that building down on the ground, once they can use the Guardian's Wrath ability to defend with, and by the way, the Guardian's Wrath ability does not attack buildings, it only attacks units, so you can also use it against Lancers and whatnot, but the Argents are just so strong against the Lancers. They do extra damage against armored targets, and Mr. Floophead is not too happy about this cheese, understandably so. I get it. I totally get it, but you know, it's something that you've got to try out. So it looks like this is going to be GG, and we are going to move on to the next one. Okay, so going on to the next tactic here, we're not going to be doing any kind of proxy shenanigans. Instead, we are going to be doing a build with the Krees, which, in my opinion, the Krees are the most powerful celestial unit of them all. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them nerfed going into early access. But going back to the game before, I feel like my opponent probably could have countered me better if he'd have gone for the Hedgehogs, because those Argents, they do extra damage against those heavy units. Something else that is a massive weakness for the Celestials is as you're spreading these collection arrays all over the map, they really have no defense. There are no workers there to defend them like with the other two factions, and so, you know, all you need is a couple of scouts, a couple of fiends, pretty much anything, and those collection arrays are going to be forced to lift off and stop mining. So in this game here, I've landed my Ark ship at my main base, and the reason I've done that is just to defend against any skulls that come from the enemy Hexen that the Infernal player spawns with. I've decided to take my initial Morph Core and move it out to the secondary position here on this map. This is one of the new maps. You guys may not have seen this before, but your natural only has a Luminite mine, whereas the other position, which I guess you could call it your third really, has both Luminite and Therium, so I've decided to move it out there. And what I'm going to be doing here is just hunkering down and trying to power up. I am going to try and do a fairly good job of sim-citying here around my Ark ship, so that if there is any kind of rush incoming, hopefully I'm going to be able to defend it. So there we've got a power bank down, and we have a bastion. By the way, on the topic of power, it doesn't really matter too much if you lose power. So you can see on the top bar, I have 22, I'm using rather 22 power out of 40. The only bad thing about losing power, well, one of the bad things is that you lose access to your top bar abilities. The second thing is that you can't build buildings, but it doesn't stop you from constructing units. So if you've already got the infrastructure that you want, it's not really big of a deal. And the power banks themselves don't have a very long build time either. So now I've moved my Ark ship over to the Therium. There are two ways to actually gather Therium. You can use the Ark ship as a drop-off point. So at the moment I'm building a prism, which is the worker unit for the Celestials, and you can see I've got one prism there on my collection array, which is actually giving it a slight boost. So instead of getting ticks of 10 Luminite, I'm actually getting ticks of 13 on the primary one there, and then I'm using the second one to harvest Therium. You can of course take a Morph Core and you can morph it into a Fabricator instead of a collection array right next to your Therium, and that will then act as a drop-off point, and you don't have to, you know, keep your Ark ship close by. So at the moment, I've dropped down a mainframe. This is the secondary building. Think of it as like a factory for the Terrans, really. I've got a couple of mainframes, in fact. And then I've got the research building for them. That's that kind of round thing on the left. And my plan here is to get a third mainframe and then simultaneously get the upgrade for the Krees. Now, I think in this particular game, I didn't comment on it, but I did notice that my opponent went for a Conclave first. So one of the popular Infernal builds in the Frigate Beta was triple Conclave. And you can see this guy has gotten a bunch of gaunts here. He's also got a Hexen, and he's most likely going to be reinforcing this. He's also taken one of the resource towers there in the middle of the map, so he's getting extra Luminite. And at the moment, I'm in not a great position. I've only got my first couple of Krees out, which I was planning to defend with. I've used Guardian's Wrath there on my Bastion, which has caused him to fall back, because the Guardian's Wrath, as you guys saw in the last game, it will absolutely shred those gaunts. But I'm on borrowed time here. Not only do I need to get more Krees out, but I also need to get that upgrade. And there we go with the upgrade. Once that upgrade is done, hopefully I should be good to go here. So what the upgrade does for the Krees is it causes them to roll around. And number one, that increases their movement speed. But number two, when they do that first attack and they come out of the ball, they sort of unleash and do like an AoE attack, which is really, really good against gaunts because the Krees do extra damage to light units. But at the moment, without that upgrade, they're going to be able to kite me around and kill me no problem. And this isn't looking too great. I'm already low on power now because he's killed one of the power banks, and now he's hammering on my mainframe and the Bastion. I can't really afford to lose those, so I'm going to move in here with the Krees, try and get him to fall back. I'm really just trying to buy time for my upgrade to finish. Hopefully, I'm not going to lose any workers. He doesn't seem to have spotted my collection array on the right there. If he would have done, he could have gone and hammered that, and I probably would have lost this game. But we're getting a nice little surround here on some of the gaunts. You'll also notice, by the way, that as the Krees go down to, I think, 1 health, they start glowing, they can no longer be damaged, and then they explode on the enemy, doing some extra damage as well. So I am getting a few extra kills here and there on the gaunts just from those exploding Krees, which is pretty nice. Now the upgrade is out, but all my Krees have died. So I'm going to have to hold back here until I have like a critical mass of Krees, and I can sort of move on to these gaunts here and really send them packing back home again. But hopefully, I mean, the gaunts don't do too much damage, and here we go, we're moving in here, and you can just see like how devastating that attack is. These units are just so good against the infernals, because most of the infernal units are light. Like fiends are light, imps are light, gaunts are light. You know, the brutes aren't light, but you would be surprised how well the Kree actually do against brutes as well. And now, with that said, I'm just going to go and counterattack here across the map, and you can see that the speed of the upgrade is just massive. I find these 3 gaunts here on the retreat, they're going to get shredded. These 3 gaunts are not going to last long as well. You will notice they only do this spin attack when they come out of the roll, so they will only start rolling if they haven't attacked for, I think it's 2 or 3 seconds. So sometimes it's debatable whether you should keep on attacking with the Krees or you should disengage, wait for the roll to come on again, and then re-engage and get that AoE attack up. That's sort of how I've been using it. I'm just trying to keep the gaunt numbers down. There you can see the triple conclave that he opened with. Of course, me being back home with my base here, it is quite a distance. This is not the smallest map in the game by a long shot. But just due to the sheer speed of the Krees, you can see all I'm doing here is macroing back home, building more Krees, sending them, rallying them straight across the map, and supporting my main army. And I think as long as I keep on the pressure here, I should be able to take him down. A lot of players have defended this well with some really, really nice SimCity on the Infernals by putting down Shrine Stones, putting down meat farms. Unfortunately, he seems to have gone a little bit all in with his original attack here with the Fiends, and so he hasn't had, you know, what he needed to have back home set up, and it looks like this is going to be a GG in my favor here. But I just wanted to show you guys this game as well, because I've seen a lot of people saying that, you know, the Celestials just look like this race where you kind of have to rush across the map. They're only a proxy race, but I wanted to show you that you don't have to use them that way at all. You can use them in very much the same way you would any other faction in most other RTS games. You can just build back home, send an attack across the map, and still do relatively well. So yeah, he's thrown those 2 Shrine Stones down at the natural a little bit too late there, and the crying emoji, and that's going to be a GG. So guys, hope you enjoyed these games. I've got a bunch more footage on my hard drive that I recorded over the Frigate playtest. I didn't put out any of this stuff earlier for you guys because just as the NDA lifted, I had gone on holiday for a couple of weeks. I'm now back, but let me know in the comments down below if you would like to see an overview of the Celestial faction, because I did specifically record some footage showing, you know, every single unit in the Celestials, every single upgrade, what they all do, how the units attack, how they move, all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking I could turn it into a video in order to be a bit more transparent with you guys and show you what you can expect once we get into early access and we can all jump into Stormgate together. So let me know if that's something that interests you. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more Stormgate, of course, and I'll see you all in the next one.